I wanted to take a look specifically at cards from the new mini set, the Throne of the Tides mini set, that have in one way or another sort of eclipsed cards of old. So either maybe look more powerful, but usually it's not really about power level so much as sort of a design evolution. Often cards get like more advanced designs, more clever designs, sometimes just better designs over time. And I like comparing cards of new to cards of old. So for instance, here we have Drown for Priest. It's basically Entomb of old. Entomb is from the League of Explorers set, which is, I don't know, when is that, like 2015, 2016 or something? Drown is now 2 mana cheaper. It's a shadow spell, and it functions very similarly to Entomb. Entomb would take the enemy minion and shuffle it anywhere into your deck. Drown puts it specifically on the bottom, which can be good, can be bad. Obviously with Dredge, you can dredge it up immediately if you want. That's awesome. If you don't have Dredge and you wanted to get it, it's bad that it's at the bottom, but often you don't really want your opponent's minion. Usually it's like kind of a random thing you just had to remove. You were desperate to remove it, but isn't necessarily fitting for your deck or game plan. So you're kind of happy to tuck it away at the bottom pretty often. So both perhaps a better positional shuffle, non-shuffle, but you get it. Where it lands is better, and it's 2 mana cheaper as well. And I think that's demanded for modern day Hearthstone, because Drown is not a crazy broken card. I think it's actually kind of just average. And Entomb used to get played. Like, it was a good control priest card, great removal for like death rattles and Sylvanas and stuff back in the day. But Drown just doesn't keep up. Boards tend to be like faster and wider and have multi threats on them. Like, you know, you might have 3 or 4 important things to kill on a given board these days. A singular big threat is just not really how we play Hearthstone as much. So Drown being 2 mana cheaper, totally fair. If there's a power creep problem, it's probably the stuff this is responding to more than the card itself. You like the Entomb art better than the Drown art? Really? I feel like Drown's art's actually pretty cool. It's like sort of like horrifying for Hearthstone. This dude is being drowned alive and he's freaking out about it. I mean, Entomb is like a more classic fantasy, I guess, in some ways, like a mummy. It's like, I'm shocked you guys hate the art so much. It's true that it's not shadowy. That's fair. I think the reason it's a shadow spell is because it's like a mind control. I think they're mind controlling him to drown. I don't know if you guys remember this back in the days of World of Warcraft. There was the boat that you would take to Booty Bay. And if you were a priest, you could mind control people off the boat as it was taking off. Like, the boat was like a teleport across regions, basically. You could mind control people off the boat as a priest. I was a priest. I did this so that they fell in the ocean and missed the boat ride. And then they'd have to swim all the way back to shore. It might literally take them like 5 or 10 minutes to swim back and get back on the next boat. So this might be what the card Drown is hearkening to. Mind control being a shadow type spell, I guess, and then drowning people off the boat in Booty Bay. This is pretty much the most clear example of a card that has gotten like dramatically stronger for basically the same or better effect. A lot of these that we're going to talk about are more sideways comparisons. They're not like 1-to-1 necessarily. Might be across class, might not have the exact same effects, but in one way or another sort of evolve the design. So this is the most clear-cut, obvious case, but we'll talk about the rest of these. So next up is the K9otron compared to the Desert Camel. Do you guys remember Desert Camel? Another League of Explorers card, actually. A 3 mana 2/4 beast. Now that's some bad artwork. Like, it's not bad, but it's ugly. It's goofy artwork for sure. Battlecry put a 1-cost minion from each deck into the battlefield. So 3 mana, by the way. Note that the mana cost is higher. It only gains 1 health. It has a symmetrical effect, so it gives your opponent a free minion in many cases. It didn't always back then, but this really didn't get played a lot either back then. So, you know, there's some real downside here that your opponent gets a better unit than you, or at the very least just, you know, symmetrical unit. The K9otron, on the other hand, can also summon you a 1-cost minion, but you don't give one to your opponent. It's 1 mana cheaper, and you get to dredge. So, of course, the dredge could miss a minion. It's not as consistent as the camel. The camel's going to hit you a 1-drop minion very often, as long as you had enough in your deck to make that reliable by turn 3. The K9otron might be more likely to miss, but of course the dredge is an additional upside on top of that. So you can occasionally hit the 1-drop and be super happy. Other times you might just be happy to dredge because you put a good card on top of your deck to fix your curve or get your high value thing. So the free extra choice bundled into the K9 I think certainly makes this look like a much, much higher power card that is certainly in the same family here for Hunter, cheesing out 1-drops. Camel was a bad card? It was, yeah. Camel was I don't remember Camel ever getting played in a real deck. So this is another example of, I think, a totally fine evolution. This isn't some disastrously power crept evil as far as I'm concerned. I think this is a just more consistent, more fun, more efficient, more good version of Desert Camel. So this is one I readily welcome as an evolution of the design. Desert Camel was more random, awkward, feel bad. So I think this is a great change. It's not, like I said, this is not a one-to-one design by any means. Like, these have some obvious differences, but the same theme and family, but this is the card we like better. Okay, so this is a cool comparison. I don't almost ever compare minions to spells because obviously there's a big gap there. Minions have stats and spells do not, but I just wanted to take a look at these two cards. I wouldn't even say Immolate is better here by any means. Usually I think the new cards are often better. I don't know if that's even true. The Chaos Gazer does something a little different, but they're in the same theme again. The Chaos Gazer, if you don't remember, is from the Descent of Dragons mini set, Galakron's Awakening. It was a 3-mana 4/3 battlecry. Curse a playable card in your opponent's hand. They have 1 turn to play it. Immolate, you have a lot more luxury to play the cards. Chaos Gazer actually creates some pretty high friction where it's like, oh, I have to play this right now. Now, it had that playable condition so that it always got stuff that was within a reasonable mana cost, but it still may be something that was like, yeah, Bran is cheap. Bran can be played, but they may not want to play the Bran on like turn 4 or whatever. Like, it's just a dead Bran, right? So you could still really create some disruption. The Immolate, you give your opponent way more luxury to have time to play the stuff, to kind of choose that, if it's a higher cost, they can wait a couple turns and still play it. So the odds of the Immolate hitting like a key thing or creating some really high friction, I think, are actually weirdly lower despite it hitting the entire hand. Whereas Chaos Gazer only hits 1 card. I guess let me just turn it to you guys. Which of these designs do you like better? Do you think Chaos Gazer or Immolate is a better design for a similar hand cursing, hand disruption effect? I like Chaos Gazer better. Me too. But you hate both. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Chaos Gazer is for sure better design. Pretty much everybody so far is saying Gazer. They're not quite up above my head yet, but Immolate feels bad, by the way. Like, we tried to play it today. I don't know. Our opponents just played all the cards all the time. We didn't really play a good control deck, maybe, but it seems like it's not really that disruptive. And you spend 4 mana, you take a big tempo loss, and then it barely does anything. I think I like Chaos Gazer better because you don't take that tempo hit. And it still has that chance for a pop-off disrupt. Because, Immolate, like, you might only end up getting 1 card anyway. So I wonder if Immolate will get additional support pieces. I wonder if there's going to be other cards to come along and say, like, for every card that is on fire in your opponent's hand, gain +1/+1 or something, whatever, right? Who knows? Conflagration. Destroy one of your opponent's cards that is on fire. Like, 1 mana spell or something that, like, follows up on the Immolate so that it has something. Because they designed this really beautiful effect for Immolate, and then I can't imagine it's just going to have 1 card that supports the visual effect. So anyway, this is one of the like rare cases where I think I'd like this design less. But maybe it'll get more follow-up. Could be interesting. I like combo disruption, but I worry about control disruption. Moving on, it's the Command of Neptulon, a new shaman spell. I haven't even really seen this played yet, I don't think. Maybe one time. Thought it was cool to compare this to Faceless Corruptor. And if you guys remember, Faceless Corruptor actually used to be a 5/4. It got nerfed. It was too good. Do you remember this? Seems strange in hindsight, really, but Faceless Corruptor was insane back in the day as a 5/4. We had like a lackey meta at the time, and a bunch of 1/1 lackeys were always hanging around on board, and then Faceless Corruptors would transform lackeys into 5/4s, and you'd get 2 5/4s for 5 mana, and they had rush, and that was insane. And now, with Command of Neptulon, you get 2 5/4s with rush for 5 mana, and it's totally normal and not even good. I mean, it might be okay. I think it's a fine card. I think it's going to be good probably at some point, but I haven't even seen one yet. It's not like it's blowing the meta up. It's not a nerf target, that's for sure. Now, of course, Command of Neptulon sort of kind of costs 6 mana with Overload, but As we all know, that's not usually much of a punish. And the fact that it's a spell and overload and nature actually give it some additional upsides. All of those things could be bonuses in the right sort of synergistic deck packages. So those might actually be good things. On top of that, of course, you don't need the minion on board. It's just 2 5/4s. There's no condition to have a minion to transform into. So all in all, just like a much better version of Faceless Corruptor in 97% of instances. And Faceless Corruptor was a nerfed card. Really crazy to see this one, I think. One of the cards that was like the most meta dominant card of its era. Nerfed to smithereens. Well, not to smithereens. It only lost 1 attack, but nerfed nonetheless. Command of Neptune comes along and just says, nah, yeah, it's okay. We can do this nowadays. It's 5/4s are no problem. Now, again, of course, this is a class card. It's fine that it's better. I'm not saying it's some awful great evil. It's actually a healthy card these days. It's great. I like that it's minion based and board based. I think that's cool. I like that we've got stuff trading and interacting on the board and putting minions and threats on board. That's great. Happy to see this sort of card, but it's just really, really a distinct comparison here. Why are they elementals instead of Murlocs? I thought Neptulon's whole deal was Murlocs. Well, that was really, I think, just the previous Neptulon card. As far as like lore is concerned, I'm not aware of Neptulon hanging around Murlocs a lot, being that he is an elemental and an elemental lord, much like, say, Ragnaros has his elemental lieutenants. I would expect Neptulon to have elemental lieutenants, not Murloc lieutenants. I think Blizzard just said, hey, he's hanging out in the water. He's the water guy. Murlocs are water dudes. Maybe we'll just make him a water Murloc dude in the original version of the card. But this actually might be more fitting from a lore standpoint. This one's a very straight up obvious comparison. The Tidal Revenant has come along to crush the Pit Crocolisk. And Pit Crocolisk is not that old of a card, shockingly. It's from Saviors of Uldum, which, I mean, I guess is like 3 or 4 years old at this stage, but you know, it's more in the modern era of Hearthstone design, I would say. And Tidal Revenant is same cost, same battle cry. It's got a minion type, but it gets 2 health and it gets 8 armor. It's incredible. And obviously Pit Crocolisk is a throwaway neutral card. Nobody is shocked or surprised or angry that it gets outclassed here by the class card of the Tidal Revenant. Again, completely healthy evolution of this design, and I love it. I love cards like Tidal Revenant, man. Getting armor gain, big minions, some removal, face damage in a pinch. That's a great card for me. I love Tidal Revenant. The armor makes it feel safer to play. Pit Crocolisk, of course, could never make the cut in a constructed deck because just too expensive and risky. Whereas Tidal Revenant is actually good. It's being played in Control Warrior lists at a high rate. It might end up being in the best Control Warrior list. It's kind of fighting right now with the Dragon versions for supremacy in the current meta, but it's actually good, and I'm so happy about that. All it took was a little health and 8 armor, and the Pit Crocolisk could have been meta. If Pit Crocolisk were just wearing a set of armor, man, he could have been so good. All right, next up, this was a fun comparison. Topple the Idol for Demon Hunter, new dredge card. Reveal your dredge choice and deal damage to its to all minions equal to its cost. I read that beautifully, by the way. Versus Dragon's Fury, an old Kobolds and Catacombs card. That was a 5-mana fire spell for Mage. Reveal a spell from your deck, deal damage equal to its cost to all minions. So basically the same design here, but Topple the Idol, you get to dredge. So that's advantageous for 2 reasons. Number 1, you just get to pick your next card, and that can be awesome. Like take a 6-drop on curve, you know, you got something to play. Number 2, you get to pick the high cost thing, which means, you know, you're going to have more reliable, often removal. Now, as is the case with Dragon's Fury, it was still pretty reliable because you ran it in decks that only ran big spells, and it reveals specifically a spell, not just anything, so you could kind of construct your deck to ensure that your Dragon's Fury is big. But in a lot of ways, that's a limitation because you don't want to have to build your deck very specifically. Like, it was hard to run secrets, I remember back in the day with Dragon's Fury. Like, sometimes it's like, I need to run an Ice Barrier, or maybe it was even Ice Block back then, I can't remember. And I can't run the Ice Block, or I'm going to risk ruining my Dragon's Fury. Or maybe you take the risk and you say, well, okay, maybe it's fine if I get Ice Block occasionally. I'm going to low roll. Topple the Idol, you might be able to avoid that a little more. At least, still could have some problems, but you can at least influence your fate a little bit more so than Dragon's Fury. So it just kind of changes the the way you think about the card. It's less about deck building, still a little bit with Top of the Idol. You want to make sure you have big stuff, but then the dredge upside is really nice as well. So I would say Top of the Idol is a better card on average, not in every scenario, but on average. And I like that it offers more agency to the player. It still encourages interesting deck building thoughts. You want big stuff, but you still have influence, you still have control. There might even be instances where you happily take like a 2-mana card with Top of the Idol just to get another good card, right? Maybe you find lethal or something off your Top of the Idol. Who knows? I think all of that's a nice advantage to Top of the Idol in this case. And not even a card I've seen played. I literally haven't seen it played yet. Being a Demon Hunter is the only downside. Yeah, I mean, it's very true that Mage cares more on average about removal than Demon Hunter currently. We haven't really seen a Demon Hunter deck that's playing big stuff and caring about this kind of removal. Contextually, Dragon's Fury is a better card in its class so far. This is an interesting one too. This one's a little bit sideways, like I teased. The Igneous Lava Gorger versus the Thickhide Kodo. This is another one where really the upside kind of gets bundled in because of Dredge. Dredge offers, I think, a lot of additional value to so many of these cards. They're both 4-mana 3/5 taunts. Both have a minion type, and both gain armor. The Thickhide Kodo gains a fixed amount of armor at 5, and the Igneous Lava Gorger can gain more armor. Of course, you can grab something big here. We were getting 10 armor with this earlier off of Shield Shatters. So theoretically, double the armor. I think it's also important that the armor on Lava Gorger is immediate as opposed to delayed. Of course, if you play a Thickhide Kodo and your opponent fireballs you in the face, the Kodo doesn't do anything. The Gorger, of course, gets the armor immediately, so you're protected against that fireball face thanks to the Lava Gorger. Now, clearly, Kodo has other synergies like Death Rattle and Beast stuff that Druid does often care about. You know, resummon it with the Zoth, etc. And the Elemental type so far in Warrior is not particularly relevant. So I'm not saying that Gorger is always a better card. Obviously, they each have distinct advantages, but I think a lot about the design of Lava Gorger feels better. Choice from the Dredge is really nice. The immediate armor gain is really nice, particularly for Warrior who can use armor in various ways with shield slams and such. So this is another similar card that just does more right away and kind of does more overall, I would argue. And I think more fun to play because Dredge makes some interesting decisions. It makes games fun, interesting, strategic. It's a great mechanic. So taking old cards and adding Dredge to them, it's like an A+, which is what we've done, right? Every one of these. Like, how many of these have been take an old card and make it Dredge, right? The K9otron was take an old card, make it Dredge. The Top of the Idol, take an old card, make it Dredge. This take an old card, make it Dredge. That's good design, I think. And yeah, that's all I got. Seven cards I thought from the mini set that were good examples of design evolution, murdered cards. That's what I call them, but that's not even really all that appropriate usually. Did you guys have any other examples you wanted to talk through before I go? I got about 5 minutes here before I have to head out. There were a few others that were kind of close. I thought about, one way or another, but didn't really feel like great comparisons. I can't remember even what they were now. Like Myrmidon for Paladin versus like the old Idis Lightbane and Darkbane cards. 3 and 3/4 is casting a spell. Drawing a card is often better than gaining Divine Shield for Idis Lightbane or whatever her name is. Thought about that one, but it's pretty debatable because it's like tempo versus value conversation, whether that's really better or not. I thought about doing Ulthok and I thought about doing Commander Ulthok and Millhouse Mana Storm. Commander Ulthok versus Millhouse. He's just a better Millhouse. But I decided not to. Niptulon versus Onyxia is actually an example of cards that do very similar things, but kind of getting worse, right? Niptulon sort of gets murdered by Onyxia, I think. They both are 10 mana rush reactive cards with immune aspects, but I think in 95% of cases, Niptulon's probably just worse. Less flexible. I mean, there are board shapes where it's a little better, probably, and the Wind Fury is like threatening in some cases, but I think a lot of the times it's amazing. 7 cards out of 35 were good examples of like old designs done up in a new way. Sure, there's even more. People will have more thoughts. I did think about Light Ray versus Thing from Below. They're both 5/5 taunts. They get cheaper, but I don't know. They operate so differently and so distinctly. It's really hard to compare them. It's really just the outcome that's the same. So yeah, those are the murdered cards of Throne of the Tides.